Have you ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix? Well, if so, consider sending it my way by going to astheravendreams.com and clicking the button to do so. And as always, my friends, thank you so very much. I've lived in the same suburb for close to 10 years now. It's a quiet place, filled with young families, retirees, and the occasional college student renting a room. My next-door neighbor, Mark, was a bit quiet, but he was the kind of neighbor that you could at least count on, at the minimum, for a friendly wave. We'd spoken a few times, nothing of real substance, just idle banter among neighbors. But I personally considered him a friend, and even if he kept to himself, I thought that he was a decent dude. He was a middle-aged guy, lived alone, and had been in the neighborhood for almost as long as I had. One summer evening, I was out mowing the lawn when Mark pulled into his driveway. He got out of his car, waved, and then said that he had to head out of town for a week. Business trip. Work was forcing him to go to an office out of the state and work with them to get some issues fixed. It was probably the most in-depth conversation that he and I had ever had. He explained that this office was way behind on numerous projects, and that he was a project manager, so he had to basically put them in their place. I wished him a safe journey, told him that I'd keep an eye on his house to make sure nothing happened, and that was that. Then a week passed. Then 2 weeks. And there was no sign of Mark. His car was still gone, his mailbox was starting to look full, and his lawn was becoming overgrown. I was a bit concerned, but I really didn't know what to do. I went and knocked on the door to see if he'd made it home, but obviously there was no answer. I checked in on the house the next day, and still no answer. That's when I started to worry a bit. Mark had said a week, not multiple weeks, and I feel like he would have mentioned it if it was going to be that long. I did contact the local police to do a potential welfare check, but they said that the house was locked and that there was no signs of anyone in distress, so there wasn't anything they could do. They suggested that it was just possible that he had to extend the trip, and basically just had to accept that as what was happening. Then, things got really weird. About 3 days after that, I went out for an evening walk, and as I passed by Mark's house, I noticed something odd. The lawn. It was perfectly manicured, like someone had just mowed it. I thought that either Mark was home or maybe a family member or friend had come over to take care of it, but it was still strange. I knocked on the door just in case, and there was still no answer. The next day I mentioned to my girlfriend that the lawn was mowed at Mark's house, and this is where all hell broke loose. The first thing she said was, "Who's Mark?" I was taken aback. Mark, our next-door neighbor, tall guy, has black hair that's usually slicked back, kind of quiet but a nice dude, drives the blue Nissan Sentra. She stared at me confused, and I motioned in the direction of his house, saying, "Mark, the guy that literally lives next door." She responded with, "I have no idea who you're talking about. That house has been empty for about a year now, since that family moved out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was she joking? But the look on her face told me that she was dead serious. I tried to explain who Mark was. I told her about how we had to leave for a business trip about 3 weeks ago, mentioned that the grass was starting to get overgrown, and even mentioned that I'd asked the police to do a welfare check on him, but that they couldn't do anything. She then hits me with, "Look, I don't know who Mark is, but you are the one that mowed the lawn next door. You did it yesterday. You mentioned that it was overgrown and that you were annoyed that the real estate company wasn't taking care of it, and you went over there and mowed it. This was where I really lost it in my own head. I didn't mow that grass. Or, at least, I don't remember doing it. That house belonged to Mark, but apparently Mark never lived there. And my own girlfriend, who has lived here for years, doesn't know who Mark is. Weirder still, she remembers a family that lived there with kids. And I have zero recollection of this family ever having lived there. This all happened about a year ago. The whole thing with Mark leaving and apparently leaving this existence altogether. I still have no recollection of ever mowing that grass. No recollection of being upset at a real estate company that I didn't even know owned the house. And I don't know the family that supposedly lived there. I don't know what happened. I really don't, but by the end of this, I'm worried that something happened to Mark, and it caused me to shift timelines. Is that a thing that can happen? Can something happen to another person and change the timeline that you exist in? Hi, Raven. I wanted to share something that I just experienced a few days ago. My husband and I had been doing some yard work since we actually got a break in this heat wave. We both worked together cleaning up the front yard. He mowed while I cleared out the garden beds of dead stems, leaves, and those relentless weeds. Then, as he did the edging of the driveway, I swept the sidewalk and patio. Once the front yard was finished, we made our way to the backyard. It's a bit larger, so my husband started mowing while I armed myself with the weed whacker and hedge clippers to clean up everything else. We both knew that once we got into the rhythm of our tasks, we'd be too far apart and it would be too loud to chat. And so we both put in our earbuds to at least listen to some music as we tackled the remaining yard work. Everything was going along smoothly as I trimmed the weeds around our fence, when I noticed an insect that caught my eye. As I looked at it, it appeared to have an uneven number of legs. I know that sounds like a no-brainer, the bug was just missing some legs, but it was more than that. It was as if the leg placement was asymmetrical. Imagine an oval shape that was pinched at one end. Then, on the tip of the pinched part, there was one leg on each side of the pinch, and one leg further up on the right. That's it. Now, I like insects, but I'm no entomologist, so this thing did not look like something I had seen before. So I stopped the weed whacker and bent down to get a closer look at it. While examining this little guy, out of nowhere and clear as day, I heard my husband's voice say, "What are you doing?" I jumped because between the music and the mower's roar, I hadn't expected him to be anywhere near me. It was as if he had materialized out of thin air. I whipped around, expecting to see him, but instead, there was no sign of my husband anywhere near me. Confused and a little freaked out, I hustled back around the corner to see him still mowing on the opposite end of the yard. There was no way he could have sprinted over here, said that in my ear, and pushed the mower back that far that quickly, within the brief seconds since I'd heard his voice. I stood there dumbfounded, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Then, when my husband turned around, we made eye contact, and he had a look of confusion. I just shrugged, waving my hand to say never mind, and we both continued with our work. Once we both finished, we walked our supplies to our garage, and my husband asked me why I just stopped and stared at the wall of the house. I was confused because I had done no such thing. I stopped and looked at the bug that was near the fence on the opposite side of where he was. We would not be able to see each other from where we were in those exact moments. I told him I hadn't done that, and he again looked confused, and explained that he clearly saw me do it, and that he thought to himself, "What is she doing?" This, of course, made me think of my experience as well, so I asked him if by chance he came over and asked me and then ran off. He looked at me like I was making no sense, and said no, confirming what I was thinking. I explained to him the bug that I saw and then what I witnessed, hearing his voice right next to me. We both thought that it was weird and decided to just leave it alone, but after listening to your stories for so long, I'm questioning if this was a glitch, or maybe some kind of tear in reality. Maybe that bug wasn't from here, and when I noticed it and started looking at it, I shifted realms, while he saw the other version of me just freeze and pause. And maybe the voice I heard was him from the other realm. But since I broke contact with the bug, maybe I shifted back. I don't even know if any of this makes sense, but it was such a weird experience that I cannot stop thinking about it. Has anyone else seen something like a bug or structure that looks unreal that seemed to shift their reality? I would love to hear others' experiences, at least so I don't feel so crazy. I'd like to say that I have a routine. Or, well, a type of routine, I guess. It involves the same things daily, but the difference is that I go to different shops. It's the same 6 to 7 shops that I have rotating every week. The music store, the comic shop, a local artisanal bakery, among other things. So, my normal day goes like this. I wake up and do the normal things in the morning before work. I go to work, finish work, come home, change out of my work clothes, and then I head out again to go shop for a few things. I know how it sounds, spending money like that every day, but I honestly only buy a snack at the bakery or something on sale at the comic or music shop. It's rarely ever me getting a buttload of stuff at every store, unless a stimulus check comes in again like last time, and then I proceeded to buy 25 comics and a stack of vinyls. Today was no different. I got home, checked out of my work clothes, and headed out. Today I was going to buy a few frames for my vinyls at the music shop. I had a few records that I didn't really listen to but cherished for nostalgia reasons, and I wanted to preserve and show them off to people when they came over. I hop back into my car, and I take off. After about a 6-minute drive into town, I reached the music shop. I can't deny that I get excited during these moments, knowing that I'm adding something, no matter how small, to change up the scenery around me at home. It kind of feels like a new chapter each time. As I walked into the music shop, the familiar strong smell of incense in the stale air, I said, "Hey," to Greg, the owner of the shop, and a good friend. "What's up, man? Back so soon?" Greg said. "Can't get enough, you know that." And that was pretty much the interaction I had each time I walked into Greg's shop. I head to the back of the store where the accessories are, and grab a few of the frames on the shelf and head to the front. "Just this, good sir," I said. "Gotcha, my guy." "Wait, you need more already?" He commented. "What do you mean? The frames? This is my first set that I'll be using," I replied. "Did something happen to the ones from before?" "What? What ones from before?" "The ones that you bought yesterday," Greg said. "But I didn't." I stopped. I hadn't gone to Greg's yesterday. Like I said before, I keep my shop routine on rotation all week. Yesterday was the comic shop and the bakery. Monday was the grocery store and the cafe. I hadn't been to Greg's since at least Sunday. I haven't been in here in a few days, and I didn't buy frames then. I didn't buy anything, actually, just looked around. Oh, my mistake then, he said. He rang me up and I walked out as confused as I've ever been in my entire life. I decided to head to the cafe. It was originally going to be the bakery, but I really needed a coffee after that interaction. I drove to the cafe and got out of the car and trotted over to the glass door in the front. As I opened the door and looked around to see how many people were there, I noticed someone standing in line that didn't make sense at all. Whoever this was looked exactly like me. And I mean identical. They were even wearing the exact Marvel sweater that I have in my closet at home. I was so taken aback that I didn't notice I was just fully blocking the doorway to the shop. I step in, still staring at the man with my face and clothes. The barista, Emily, another friend of mine, called out to me asking if I'd have the regular. It snapped me out of my trance. I looked over at her and said, "Huh? Oh, yeah. Sure, 2 shots of espresso this time around." "Oh, feeling adventurous. Coming right up, Chief." The man with my face must have overheard mine and its name being called, because when I looked back to where he was staring right at me, completely horrified, like I was. Another 10 seconds of staring, and my name is called again. I look over to see Emily with my coffee in hand, holding it out. I walk over and give her cash and tell her to keep the change, turning around before she can say anything. As I turned around, I noticed that the man was no longer there. Maybe he slipped out while I was grabbing my coffee. I turned back around and asked Emily if she saw anyone who looked like me today. She said she thought she saw me walk in about 3 minutes before I ended up ordering, but she didn't see me slip back out. I walked out of the cafe. Nothing. Nobody with my features or my car or anything nearby. So, is that what Greg saw yesterday? Was it another version of me? As of the time of writing this, it's been 4 days since I saw my doppelganger, or whatever that was. I never saw anyone that looked like me after that, nor did Greg or any of the other shopkeepers say they saw me buying things when I wasn't. If any of you know anything about what I just experienced, or experienced something similar, please let me know, because I'm kind of freaking out. I have always been a fan of quaint little shops. The ones that sell antiques and weird little things. The kind that exist, but you have no idea how they manage to stay open because you never see customers in them. I had moved to a new town, not far from where I lived prior, but far enough that I hadn't spent a lot of time going through the shops that existed near my new complex. I decided to do some strip mall shopping, and in one of them, right next to a Big Lots, I found this adorable little shop called the Curious Cabinet. It was an antique store, tucked into a narrow alley by the Big Lots, and the sign above it had definitely seen better days, but it was honestly what charmed me enough to check it out. I can tell you that the minute I walked into that store, I was hit with this smell of old books and repolished wood. It was an incredibly rustic smell, one that imprinted itself into my memory. I was immediately greeted by the owner, a man who introduced himself as Mr. Thompson, and he was the most inviting and welcoming person I have ever met. He was so polite. He had information on every single item in his shop. He was dressed in a tan button-down shirt, wearing suspenders on his pants, and a cute little news cap that fit him perfectly. Basically, this was the most adorable and friendly elderly man I have ever run into in my 28 years of living on this planet. I spent a couple of hours in the shop, perusing the items, talking with Mr. Thompson about random things, and I found this little wooden owl statue. I asked him about it, and he mentioned that his brother had actually hand-carved it, that he spent hours cutting into the wood to make the owl. I talked to him about it a bit more, and he mentioned that his brother had recently passed away. I asked him if he really wanted to sell the statue since it was something his late brother had created, and he immediately lit up, saying that he absolutely wanted to sell it. He said that his brother wanted to spread the joy of birds, and that someone else having that statue would be exactly what he would have wanted. That story had me opening my wallet. It was a perfect sales pitch, and I have no reason to believe that it wasn't true. Mr. Thompson wrapped the owl in paper and handed it to me gently, telling me that he hoped that I would admire the statue for years to come, and thanked me so much for my business. As I left, he said that he hoped I would come back, and I immediately told him that I would, and that I would bring in more people that would love to see what he had, and he was elated to hear that. About a week later, my sister came over and asked about the statue. I explained the whole story, told her about the curious cabinet and Mr. Thompson, and she seemed entirely enchanted about the idea. I told her that we could go, and she was all for it. We loaded up in my car, and I headed towards the big lots. When we got there, I drove up through the parking lots and was confused. The alleyway was still there, the big lots still existed, but the sign for the curious cabinet wasn't. I was concerned, thinking that somehow, in a week, the place had closed down. I parked and told her that it was in the alley, and she looked as confused as I was. We got out and walked over to where the shop was just a week prior, and in its place was a laundromat. Confused and a little freaked out, I looked around thinking maybe I had just gone to the wrong place in the alley, that maybe I had forgotten the exact spot, but the only other place in the alley part of that strip mall was an insurance office. I stood there just staring at this uninviting door that said laundry wash. There was no curious cabinet, no antique shop, just a building with a bunch of washing machines. I don't know why, but I opened the door to the laundromat and walked in, thinking that if I crossed the threshold, it would magically change back to the beautiful little shop, and I would find out that Mr. Thompson was some kind of wizard or something. When I walked in, an older man that vaguely looked like Mr. Thompson walked out of the back and up to the register, but I could immediately tell that this was not the man that I spoke to the other day. He had this aggressive scowl, this stare that screamed that he hated everyone. I kind of stuttered and asked if he was Mr. Thompson, and he nodded, saying, "Yeah, how can I help you?" I asked him what happened to the antique shop that was here, and he again just stared confused, saying that there wasn't an antique shop here, and that he'd run this laundromat for the last 7 years. I just sort of nodded and apologized for wasting his time, and I immediately turned around and grabbed my sister's arm to leave. She asked me if I was okay, but I told her that I had no idea what was going on, that this was an antique shop only a week prior, and that I had bought the owl statue from that old man, but he was much nicer. She laughed, probably through nerves, and told me that it was weird, but then mentioned that it was pretty clear that I had just forgotten where it was located. I tried to explain that I was certain that this was it, but reality was presenting evidence to the contrary. She shrugged it off, just saying that I would find it eventually, and when I did, we could go check it out. I had to just agree and pretend that that was what was happening. But I know the truth. That store was right there, and that man was Mr. Thompson, but he was not the same man. The man running the laundromat was not personable. He looked like he was jaded after having worked at that place for so long. Completely the opposite of the Mr. Thompson that I had met. I never found the store, at all. It doesn't exist on Google Maps near me. I don't have any record of the transaction as I had bought that statue with cash, and the receipt is nowhere to be found. The only evidence that I have now that I ever shopped at that shop is the fact that the statue still exists. It sits on my shelf in my bedroom, just this little anomaly in my existence. A reminder that, at some point, something strange happened that I cannot explain. My boyfriend and I both have our own vehicles. I drive a black Jeep and he drives a white Escape. He was at work yesterday until 4:30 p.m., and I got off work around 11 a.m., and decided to go to my friend's house for a little bit. My friend came outside when I got to her house, and we walked into her house together. About 20 minutes later, I realized I left my cigarettes in the Jeep, so I went out to get them. As I walked out the door, I saw my boyfriend's white Escape, which I do drive a lot, sitting in the driveway. I was confused because it was about 1:30 p.m., and my friend lives 45 minutes away. I walked up to the Escape to see what he was doing there, and no one was in the car. I looked around and realized that I didn't see the Jeep, so I took the keys out of my pocket to hit the lock button to make it make sounds to see where it was, and I pulled out the keys to the Escape, which would have been impossible because my boyfriend took the Escape to work and we only have one set of keys for that car. I put the keys back in my pocket to run inside and ask my friend what car I pulled up in. She looked at me like I lost my mind and said that I pulled up in the Jeep. I told her that the Escape was in the driveway and not the Jeep. We went outside so that I could show her, and the Jeep was back, and the Escape was gone. She saw how freaked out I was, and we went to look at the security cameras from right before I pulled in to where my friend and I walked out of her house, and the camera wasn't working, which she claims has never happened. We sat outside till I left because if it was going to happen again, I wanted to see it happen. I ended up leaving an hour or so later, but I honestly was nervous to get in the car because I literally thought it was going to glitch out again, and I would end up somewhere that I don't want to be. This was one of the weirdest things I've had happen to me, and I wouldn't believe it if it hadn't happened to me. Has anyone had something like this happen to them before? Okay, so before this starts, I just want to say that while I do have a heavy obsession with simulation theory, and because of that, a lot of you might think that I'm making this up. But I swear what I experienced happened more than once. It happened for the first time 2 weeks ago. I had just gotten home from work after having a pretty rough day. I decided to text my friend John to see if he wanted to go to the bar and grab a few drinks. After a minute or two, he responded with, "Sure, let me just take out the trash and I'll come scoop you up in my car." So I told him, "Sweet, I'll be outside." After about 10 minutes, I see John's car pulling up. I get up from the bench that I was sitting on and hop in. "Have you been, man? It's been a while since we grabbed a drink," John asked me. I said, "Yeah, it's been good. told him that work was killing me. All good, man. Let's go get wasted. That'll help. Exactly my thinking. I've been needing a drink for quite a while, but haven't had the days off afterwards to drink the amount that I, quote, unquote, needed to help my situation. I was aiming to get blackout drunk. We get to the bar after about a 5-minute car ride. We get out and head in and go sit at a table rather than the bar. We usually did this when we wanted to get a bunch of wings as well as beer, which this time we did. After ordering, I realized that I left my wallet at home. John said it was fine and just to PayPal my half to him and to go grab his wallet from the car. He tosses me his keys, and I trot outside to the car, grab the wallet, and head back in. As I head to our table, I noticed that John wasn't there. Thought maybe he got up to use the bathroom. I sat down and the waitress brought me my first round. This place doesn't usually card regulars, i.e. me, after they get carded the first few times, so not having my wallet didn't matter for the drinks. As I sat and finished my first beer, John still hadn't returned. And after a few more minutes, my plate of wings and a second round came for my table. But the odd thing is, the wings John ordered, nor his beers, never arrived. I asked the waitress where my friend's drinks and food were, and she looked at me confused. There was no one else at the table when you ordered, sir. What? That's impossible. He was sitting right across from me. I don't know what to tell you, mister. There wasn't anyone else here when you ordered, she replied. I grabbed my phone off the table and texted John asking where he was. No answer. After about 3 to 4 minutes of this, I gave him a call. It went to voicemail. I called 5 more times before he finally picked up. Hey man, sorry, I just got your texts. Service has been weird all day. I just got to your house. You coming out? What? Dude, you picked me up like half an hour ago, and we already ordered. Did you go back to my apartment? Then there was just silence on the other end. Hello? What? And then the line cut off. I called again, but there was no answer. I called 2 or 3 more times, and nothing. I got up from the table and sprinted outside, and John's car was gone. That's not possible, I thought. I went back in and checked the bathrooms, but nothing. There was no way if he was in the bathroom that he walked past me and out to the front door without me seeing him. Even if he managed to, why would he? Especially without telling me that he was leaving. I went back outside to call an Uber and wait for it. I was going to take it to John's house to see if he was alright, but just as I opened the front door to the bar, I see John's car sitting right where he parked it, about 40 minutes prior. He wasn't in it, though. I turn around and there he is, sitting at the table, eating his wings and sipping a Coors Light. I walk up to him and instantly get mad at him. Dude, what the hell? I've been looking for you for almost an hour. Where have you been? Huh? I've been here waiting for you to get out of the bathroom. You were in there a long time. Are you okay? He replied. What? But I wasn't... I stopped mid-sentence. You know what? Never mind. Like I said, it's been rough lately. I sat down and enjoyed my wings and beer, or at least tried to. All the while I could feel John's eyes constantly fixed on me in a weird state of confusion. After he dropped me off at home, a quiet car ride the whole way, I got on my computer and looked up some articles on simulation theory that I hadn't read in a while. And the more I read, the more that I thought I had just experienced some sort of glitch in the Matrix. Since then, me and John have gone to the bar and got wings on 2 separate occasions. And both times, the same thing seems to occur. We order, something causes one of us to get up from the table, John is gone in both instances, and then he comes back 40 minutes later. Like, nothing ever happened. He usually says I should lay off the wings if it keeps putting me in the bathroom for that long. So, I don't know if what I'm experiencing actually is a glitch in the Matrix, but what I do know is that it definitely is not normal. The more I think about this, the more I think it's strange. This happened during COVID in Melbourne, where we had strict rules, and my workplace had us taking rapid tests intense before we started the shift. So I start work at 2 p.m., and I leave usually just after 1. This particular day, I had done my errands before work, made dinner for the family, done laundry, etc. I had some lunch around 12, and then I jumped on the PlayStation to see if I could do the next mission of the game that I was playing. It gets to around 1. I clearly remember seeing 12:53. Well, crap, I better get ready. I have a shower and get dressed and leave for work. I listen to the 1:30 news on the radio while on the drive to work. It's all regular, nothing out of the ordinary. I arrive for work, and it seems oddly quiet. I found a car parked downstairs, which is uncommon, and there's no line for the tent to do the rapid test. Even the ladies running look surprised that I have arrived there for some reason, and said something like, "Back again?" Which I took as, yeah, for another day. I went in the tent and have to wait for 10 minutes for the test results, and a furious storm comes out of nowhere. It was so windy and raining so hard. I just looked at my phone, and it said 2:47. I was thinking, it can't be. My phone has to be glitching out. I finish up the test and go to clock into work, and yeah, it was nearly 3 p.m. I was baffled. How did I do this? I never lose track of time, and yet the weirdest thing was that no one asked me once why I was late, or what I was doing for that first hour of my day. I still to this day think about how I lost an hour. So that, my friends, was this week's Glitch in the Matrix collection. Some deeply, deeply bizarre stories this week. Some very weird ones. Disappearing people seems to be the theme, and mowing the lawn in 2 of them, interestingly enough. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with these glitch collections, how I just randomly have stories that seem to link to each other. I know some of you said that seems to happen in your lives more often than not. I just find it funny whenever I'm reading these stories that are, for the most part, just submitted to me, but some of them do come from Reddit. And again, I make the collection somewhat random, and as I'm reading them, I find connections among the collection. They are collection connections. That's what Glitch in the Matrix stories are. Collection connections. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stories. Weird, bizarre, strange, and definitely intriguing. So hopefully you all enjoyed them. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. I would appreciate that. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider doing that subscribbling thingin'. There you click the subscribble button, and you subscribble to the chibble. And let me know you're there. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. If you subscribe, leave a comment. You can also leave a comment, too, which we'll get to that in a minute. Down below, and just let me know you're new to the channel, and I'll welcome you aboard, as I do everyone else. If you're feeling a little bit extra and want to support the channel a little more, you can do a super thanks, which is just a tip to the channel. Always appreciated, never expected. You can also do the join memberships or join Patreon, where you get early access to content like this. I get them up early-ish, some of them a few hours, some of them a day or 2. It always kind of seems to be a coin toss with me on getting the videos up early. I'm decent at it. I'm not gonna say I'm the best, but I try. Anyways, all support is appreciated, so The last thing you can do is leave me a comment with what we call the word of the week. On the screen right now is a collection of all the comments left last week with the word of the week. The word of the week, what you do is you take the word that I give you, you then leave me a comment on that video with the word of the week prior to the next one coming out, typically by the upcoming Sunday, so you have Monday to Sunday, and I then screenshot those comments and put them in the next video. As, again, you can see right now. And that's about the end of that. Yeah. Thank you to everyone who left the comments last week and who will leave the comments this week. Y'all are amazing. I appreciate you. This week, I'm taking a word that is not on the list that you all suggested. It's a list that was suggested in a recent video. It's a word that was suggested in a recent video. I swear my brain works sometimes. I was having some troubles with the words foster and fester, and I wanted to use the word foster, so the word of the week is foster. That is to provide temporary care to something or someone in a household or a similar setting, such as a foster pet, foster child, potentially. Though foster children it's less of a temporary care thing, it's more of a permanent, though foster pets are as well. So, the dictionary says temporary. I don't know. Anyways, the other thing foster means is to promote, to grow, or develop, and encourage. That's the one I was looking for. I like to foster a positive and loving environment. Yeah. So leave me your comments and get featured next week on the Glitch in the Matrix video that comes out this upcoming Monday. I'm done. Y'all have a fantastic day. I hope I do see you again here very soon. My voice is cracked. Please remember that I do love you. You are loved. You are important. You are very important. And you're the best you that you can be. Do not forget it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And, of course, my friends, until next time, much love, and sleep well.